the largest cases and the largest fees, if you combined all of them, would probably be less than 3% of the firm's total revenue. And that's just because I think our systems, especially on the smaller to mid-sized cases, are so refined and so tight that every single day when we check the mail, it's a lot of policy limit settlements coming in every single day. And that's really what keeps the firm alive, but also allows us to be profitable.
I would send Brian cases. I'd be like, no, this isn't the case for me. Brian's like, what do you mean this isn't the case for you? I'll make money on this all day. And I was like, I don't know how he's making money on those cases. And now we're together. Props to Brian. He's taught me how to make money on those cases. And I've made a lot of success on smaller cases that I'd traditionally not take.
That's Brian Riley and Austin Kurtz, founders and co-owners of KRLG Injury Lawyers. 4 months after launching their firm, they generated $300,000 in fees. Their secret wasn't chasing blockbuster verdicts. It was building systems so refined that policy limit settlements started arriving every single day.
I put my 25 paralegals in Columbia against any of my Arizona paralegals. They're amazing. They are so good at what they do. And so they're that good. I think utilizing nearshore hiring has allowed us to scale while people are jumping straight to AI.
In this episode, you'll learn why holding out for big cases leaves boutique firms cash poor, how waiting on large cases drains firms' resources fast, and how hyper-refined systems process small and mid-sized cases at scale. I'm Jason Lazarus, and this is Trial Law Review. So you guys launched Kurtz Riley Law Group in early 2024. Both of you had spent years inside bigger PI firms and big law. What did each of you see from the inside that convinced you the boutique trial-ready model was the right bet for your future?
Man, it's funny because it's a good question because actually Austin and I think our backgrounds are pretty different in terms of kind of how we were molded to become the attorneys that we are today. I think, my background was a little bit more in the, just like your kind of red car, blue car, accident cases, premises liability cases where maybe not the sexiest of liability or the sexiest of damages, but you find a way to get into the details and get a great result for the client. And it was kind of done for my entire career at a very fast pace type environment. Austin can speak for himself, but he was probably in a position where he had a little bit more ability to be a little more selective on the cases that he was going to handle and probably had a smaller caseload. But I think, in doing what I did over my 10-year career before starting Kurtz Riley, and probably also what Austin did, we both had opportunities to go to trial and realized that, even the people who have most trials underneath their belt aren't necessarily as polished as you would imagine, even though they're great. It's kind of one of those things where when you get into it, you kind of realize everyone's just trying to figure this shit out. And it's like every single case, no matter who you're with, it's like, oh, wait, I don't know that. You don't know that. We really don't know this. We need to go figure this out. And that kind of gives you a lot of confidence when you get a few trials under your belt and you start learning, what you could potentially do. And that was sort of kind of part of the way that we ended up getting together in the first place.
100%, Brian's right. Put it simply, I think we both saw gaps in a lack of technology being used, at least from my side, lack of tech aggressively, lack of speed and lack of fun. It just wasn't fun. One of our mentors is Bob Simon. Bob's been awesome for us and helped us grow a lot. But Bob kind of was the first lawyer in the space. It was why can't you practice in a t-shirt half the time? Why can't you have fun doing it? Why can't you enjoy what you're doing? Why can't you ask that question? Why can't you do that? And it started making us see it differently before and then during, and kind of helped us build accordingly. And so I think we saw a gap in the market where we're look, if we can do this, utilize technology, we both are workhorses. Brian's probably the only person I've ever met that can work more than me. I pride myself on being a workhorse, and Brian is just right there with me. We're always going. And so we're both already working that hard. Why not do it for ourselves? And we have fun doing it. We really do have fun with everything we do, the branding and the practicing. It's all just, it's a good time. We don't take ourselves too seriously. The work's serious, but the practice itself, like, you don't have to take yourselves too seriously to be successful.
Have you noticed how most conversations about law firm growth stop at intake, marketing, and trial results, but rarely addresses what happens after resolution? That's the gap Synergy focuses on. We partner with personal injury law firms to manage the operational side of healthcare lien resolution and compliance, bringing structure and clarity to one of the most overlooked but costly parts of what your team does day in and day out. If you're thinking more seriously about operations beyond the courtroom, you can explore Synergy services through the link in the show notes or by scanning the QR code on the screen. Now back to today's conversation. This idea of being able to have fun, not being as serious in terms of just your, not necessarily a trial, because obviously that's serious. Being a lawyer, I understand, that is serious. And being someone who's been through a personal injury myself, I've been through the entirety of that kind of a case. It is very personal, very serious, but this idea of bringing some fun to the work, how do you guys make that a thing with balancing the seriousness of what you're dealing with?
We have a team approach for sure. And I think between Austin and myself, and especially with the attorneys, we do a really good job of celebrating our wins. So many times people in our office are going above and beyond for clients, and many clients realize what's going on, and many clients are obviously super, super grateful for the results that we're able to get them. But occasionally, clients don't see it that way. So it's important for us to, celebrate an attorney in our office or even each other when we get a great result for a client. We know it's a hard case. We know there's issue, causation, liability, damages, what have you. And you still find a way to get a result for a client that you can be proud of. And maybe it's not going to go on the Instagram. Maybe we're not going to put it on the LinkedIn. But if we can sort of celebrate each other and congratulate each other for doing a good job, I think that's a big deal. One of the cool things that we have in our office, what's that thing called, a Vestaboard, Austin? It's right outside my office. And essentially it's this cool display. It kind of rattles and gives letters and different things. So when someone visits our office, like Jason, when you visit our office, it'll say, "Welcome, Jason Lazarus." And, the whole office will know who's there, who's visiting. But every single time, someone in our system, inputs the settlement and moves the case to, settled, all of a sudden that board starts rattling. And it's like the whole office looks and sees, okay, he settled a case and how much was it for? And of course, it's awesome when you see a huge number up there, and maybe it's one of our newer attorneys who has a 6-figure settlement. Like, we do a really good job of making sure to highlight that. And even when it's one of our more senior attorneys who resolves a case for, let's just say, $5,000, like, we get a little riz out of him or her just by kind of joking, like, "Hey, is that really worth putting it on the board?" But in all, like, every settlement, every result counts for clients. Every circumstance is different. And, we don't discriminate, and we're grateful to have the cases. But I think that's just one of the ways where we do a good job of really highlighting what's going on in the office all around. Even if we're just locked into our offices the entire day, people know what's going on just by having really high communication.
I think we're generally just a fun office. I think that we're young, right? Brian and I are 10 years in, a little bit more than 10 years in each. And so with that, we've attracted other young talent. And the maturation of the firm most recently has been hiring on some more senior attorneys. We've added 2 ABOTA lawyers to kind of help mentor the younger lawyers. Within the last 3 months, we've added those. And I think that we involve the team, staff, all the way up to attorneys in the marketing efforts and the wins and everything. I mean, they're all on the Instagram. They all die to go make a skit video. They think it's so fun. And that's a lot of our branding, is just like events and social and fun and high energy, high results.
I love that culture around winning. And we do that internally. Every time there's a waiver or, a great result, teams lights up, and, everybody on our team is celebrating that, hey, we've helped someone who is injured get more money in their pocket by either getting a lien waived or greatly reduced. And those kinds of things are part of what contributes to that atmosphere of one, purpose, but also two, celebratory, taking it seriously, but also taking time to acknowledge, celebrate, and have some fun around what you're doing every day.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think if you don't have that type of feedback being reinforced constantly in your office, it's really easy to see, people start to kind of get checked out. We definitely want to create an atmosphere of like positivity and what we're doing matters, because it does get a little monotonous sometimes. I mean, I've been joking for a long time. I think I've settled enough $25,000 policy limit cases in my career. I think I can move on to something else, but I'll probably settle another one after this call. It's like, whatever. It's like, I'm never going to get sick of it, but like at the same time, maybe I can find a way to push those cases down the line. It's hard though. And maybe this really connects to your world. Arizona is a non-disclosure state. And that's where we practice mainly. So, when we're typically getting a lot of our referrals from other law firms that are stuck on cases or need help, we understand what the liens might be, but we don't really know what the policy limits are on the other side. And sometimes the biggest cases there's really no insurance to pursue, or maybe there's just 25,000. Other times you've got maybe a smaller case, but you end up getting into litigation or something like that. There's a $1.5 million policy on the other side. And you're like, if I could take these facts and this client in this case and move it over here to this policy, things would be a lot easier and a lot better for everyone involved. And then, swap it for the smaller one, but it doesn't work that way.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's not the reality of this stuff. Because all too often you see just when I got hit, the guy who hit me had like a 10K policy. Thank God I had a lot of stacked. And that was what compensated me for the significant injuries that this guy caused, because there's so many people driving around with small policies, and that's the unfortunate reality. And we see that all the time with the work that we do. It's the unfortunate reality. Brian, I wanted to ask you, because you spent close to a decade at some well-known firms, one that's right here in my hometown, one of the largest, or claims to be the largest. I think they are the largest. I'm curious, though, after seeing how case management worked at a high volume shop like that, what did you specifically decide not to do when you co-founded the firm?
When we started the firm, Kurtz Riley, I don't want to say the bad, but like we took all the good and the bad, if that's how you want to say it, and we analyzed it and we said, what parts do we want to replicate when we start Kurtz Riley? What things are they doing at our prior firms that we understand from the business side of it, but maybe we want to tweak it to become a little bit more our style? Me personally was more about just making sure that litigation caseloads in a amount of cases in litigation per employee or per attorney were kind of set up in a way that was a little bit more manageable. And also taking a little bit of a more laid back approach when it comes to working with opposing counsel. And the reason why I say that is because, Austin and I were in t-shirts most of the time. We always have a suit ready to go if we need to throw one on for an intake or if we get called into a hearing. But I think we do a better job of earning the respect of defense counsel just by working with them. And I think they appreciate seeing our name on pleadings when they get assigned from the insurance company, because they know that we're going to be a firm that's going to be on time with our disclosure statements, on time with our discovery responses. We're going to give, reasonable, well thought out demands and mediation statements. We're going to get experts. We're going to do all the things that you typically see, but you're not going to get a lot of nasty gram emails from us. And we're also really about trying to work out the case based on the merits, not just on some, crazy technicality or anything like that. And to be honest with you, we get a lot of referrals from defense attorneys, right? And that's probably, for myself and Austin, is one of the, greatest compliments when a defense attorney says, "Hey, I have a friend who was in an accident. Can you take care of them?" And I think this year I've already represented 3 or 4 defense attorneys on their separate accident cases where they got rear-ended or T-boned and they needed help on their case. And it's funny. You bet your ass. I talked with them once I opened up their first party policy. I'm like, you guys really only have $50,000 in uninsured or underinsured? Like, what are you doing? Like, don't you see cases like these every single day? Like, you got to protect yourself. But that's sort of, I think, the attitude that Austin and I have taken in terms of maybe coming from our past firms, and just making sure that we can be prompt and we're very responsive, like hyper responsive with defense counsel, which means keeping the litigation caseloads a little smaller. And then also just giving like the most respect, probably too much respect sometimes, to our opponent, because we want to be the type of firm that, they call when they need somebody, or from family or friend member needs somebody.
That's smart business philosophy. I mean, professionalism goes a long way, and stability. And I know, I still handle some things here in Florida through my law practice, where I litigate with Florida Medicaid, and you got to approach that professionally and with respect, because the scorched earth mentality, I just don't know that it gets you anywhere at the end of the day. And then when you need something, hearing needs to be moved around because, schedules change, and you don't get the pushback that you do if you're just being a total jerk to your opponent. Yeah. I mean, we all have a job to do. So, Austin, you trained under Tab Turner in products liability and built litigation experience with trial firms in your jurisdiction. How did that combination of work in products specific and big law discipline shape the way you have approached the case selection for your firm?
I think Brian hit it on the head earlier. Is like, I was absolutely way more selective. Before Brian and I got together, I would send Brian cases. I'd be like, no, this isn't the case for me. Brian's like, what do you mean this isn't the case for you? I'll make money on this all day. And I was like, I don't know how he's making money on those cases. And now we're together. Props to Brian. He's taught me how to make money on those cases. And I've made a lot of success on smaller cases that I'd traditionally not take. I think that I would disagree with case selection issues on there and what I learned, but I do think that there was a lot of benefit from working in those capacities. I've been really grateful to have some amazing mentors in practicing. I started at Lathrop Gage in Denver and worked with some great lawyers there and saw traditional big law and had my writing torn apart in ways that I try to tell our attorneys that they're so lucky that I don't do to them what I went through, because it was exhausting. But at the same time, I will text those attorneys that I worked under and be like, hey, I am so grateful that I went through boot camp with you guys, because it made me so much better and fighter. I worked commercial litigation before in those capacities. And so now when I have a defense lawyer trying to do the big law shit with me, I'm like, dude, come on. I've done this. I know exactly what you're doing. Just stop. And then alternatively, working after Lathrop, I worked with Ty Tabor at Aiken Shank and Ty again at Gallagher and Kennedy, and a bunch of great attorneys at Gallagher and Kennedy. And we brought Ty over here. And so now Ty's training a bunch of our young attorneys over here, which is really cool. And then Tab, working with doing products. During COVID, I was doing products with Tab all across the country, pro-hawked in 14 states or something crazy, because everyone would send Tab his products cases. And he was Turner Associates. He was Tab Turner, and I was Associates, me and one other guy. And Tab is just one of those brilliant kind of human beings that knows how to do it. He taught by doing a lot more than taught by telling. But I had the opportunity to try a case with him, which was really cool, because we would kind of debrief it every night. And then after the trial, we went through, all right, what did we do wrong? What did we do right? How do you prevent that in the future? And those moments are priceless. Best advice to anyone who's our vintage or younger and trying to get into it is I really do think getting the right mentors is so important. And we, Bob and Mauro are good friends with good mentors too. When we have trial questions and workup questions, we'll go and ask them, hey, what would you do on this? And who would you call? Why would you do it? And a lot of time we're bullshitting with each other and buddies and joking around. But when it becomes serious, it's hey, I really how did you do this? How did you get those results? They just give the feedback that's so great. And so Brian and I both try to give that back to young attorneys in town. Whenever someone asks, I never say no to coffee. I never say no to a LinkedIn message. Someone wants to go and pick my brain, I'm flattered that they think I know anything to offer. But that was always given to me anytime I asked a question. And so having the opportunity to work at those firms and get those relationships and get those opportunities and that hand-on training, it really did shape a lot of how I practice and do stuff. You pick, I like what he does. I don't like this part. I like that part. We just kind of pick and choose. It's like building a superhero with all their different talents. It's pretty cool.
For most people, when they're starting a business, and I know I experienced this myself when I started Synergy, is I underestimated kind of the runway that I needed financially to start the company. Because if you've never been in charge of all the financial decisions, when it starts piling up on you, you're like, oh my God. And looking at, how do revenue start to flow and how's everything cash flow? What did the first 6 months look like for you guys financially? And, how did you kind of get through all of that, especially not having the safety net of, what you had before, which was being with established firms?
I'll Austin answer this one first, but I'm interested to see if he's going to tell a funny story or not. And then I'll follow up with the funny story if he doesn't get it.
I don't know that I have the funny story. I know that we both had, or both our firms were very amicable when we were leaving. We worked out, hey, these are our cases. Brian and I were both pretty good at originating work. And so we're like, hey, this is our work. This is where we're going to go. And they were cool with that. And that allowed us to know we had some sort of runway in cases. But, if you look at KRLG now and you look at where we were, the strategy was not like, hey, how are we going to bankroll a firm of 12 attorneys and a full staff? Like, the thought was, how are Brian and I going to go work a law firm out of the back of Bob Simon's office downtown in Phoenix for free and just enjoy life? And how are we going to get cases? Well, we'll just go do our thing and go out and be everywhere and just go to events, and suddenly case will come in. Maybe we'll make as much as we were making before. That was kind of the strategy. Let's just enjoy it a little bit more. And so we both had good savings set up, and we'd been intentional with our savings before, and we knew that we would be able to kind of get by based on the pipeline. And we kind of thought okay, we'll just find a way to get cases. It just took off a lot quicker than we expected.
Yeah. And I think obviously, Austin and I always said, if you, put us in a corner together, we're going to fight or chew our way out, whatever it takes. And when you go out on your own, that's exactly what you're doing. You're putting yourself in a corner, right? There's no more, hey, you're getting paid every 2 weeks on Friday. All that stops as soon as you go out on your own. It's scary. But, for anybody who's listening and interested in starting their own firm, yes, having an amicable break with your prior law firm is a really good idea, especially from a perspective of, let's make sure that clients are taken care of in a way of, is this case staying or is it coming with me? Can we work out a deal to, negotiate the fee back and forth? What's best for the client? That's number one. Number two is, I know Austin and I both took out a HELOC loan. So if you're a homeowner, we did a HELOC loan and basically just got a line of credit, which was ready for us when we needed it. And, when you are officially on your own and you've only got maybe, a quarter of as many cases as you've had before, you become very intentional within those cases, that smaller caseload. And it can be a little bit easier to drive the cases home, get the policy limits offers in. And I know for a fact, Austin and I did that. And, we had, I think I officially came over March of 2024 at my prior firm, Morgan & Morgan. I stayed and made sure the manager was set before I left, and then ended up coming over officially with Austin at the beginning of March 2024. We hustled hard on the cases that we had. We got a bunch of checks in. We had the HELOC loan ready just in case, our bank accounts were going low. And sure enough, a lot of cases banked. And I think one of the members of either one of our families got a little excited on Amazon one night, and they ended up having to hit the HELOC just to make sure that the credit card can get paid. But other than that, I'm not going to name names, but it was fun to, be able to report to our wives and say, hey, it's our 4th month in business and we've done $300,000 in fees. That's pretty good, and our operating account's set up, and now we can pay for a employee and we can pay for an office and all that's super exciting to talk about with your family, but it's important to, if you have a family, let them know it's not like that's my money. It's not like that's Austin's money. That's the firm's money. And at some point in the future, if you're the owner of the firm or partners at the firm, you're going to figure out what you're deciding to pay yourself, either in a distribution at the end of the year or at the quarter, however you decide to set it up. And, that's definitely kind of a funny but cautionary tale, that if you want to keep the firm growing, you got to have a structure in place to make sure that's what's going to happen. And Austin and I also learned in our first year, especially when we were pulling in some big settlements. I can't remember who said it, but they're like, you need to talk to an attorney and get like a real operating agreement set up. Like our operating agreement was like a combination of ChatGPT and like the first template I could find online. And like spending the $5,000 to get the operating agreement done was big because, Austin and I know the rules. It's like neither one of us can just on a whim say, hey, we're paying $5,000 for this. So I think that's what it is. And so, that means no charging. We bought a Sprinter van last year. Like that was a pretty big expense. And it's not like I can't just go down and say, hey, put the Sprinter on the credit card. Like you have to have the decision has to be made in a formal way in order to prevent fights from happening later on. And we've been very good partners. I expect us to be good partners. We're heading to Cabo in 2 days. So we're excited for that. And, it'll be more fun and celebration and all that kind of stuff. But good thing there's nothing in Cabo that costs more than $5,000. So we won't have any of those conversations.
So you guys describe your firm as boutique, and that could mean a lot of different things. How do you define that operationally, and how have you gone about defining it from a marketing perspective in terms of differentiating your firm from the others out there that you compete against?
Yeah, I think we're less boutique every day than we were when we started. I think we are boutique in the sense that, like when I think like a lot of the times I've worked in places like Gallagher and Kennedy did a good job of one of the things they described is like, we have skill sets, big firm capacity, but like we treat you like a small firm. Like we have confirmations that we're there and you can reach an attorney and everything. I think that we're boutique in a similar nature in the sense that people can get a hold of us. We've built out really to make this a client first firm. Every attorney at the start of a case gives a Calendly link right to their client. Hey, you want to book a call on my calendar? Don't tell me you can't get a hold of me. You have a link that's evergreen. You can book it whenever you want. That's like a very unique nature and that's hard to do. Most law firms kind of structure when you're doing a volume capacity, we'll structure with like an attorney up top and a really big team. And with that big team, it's pretty hard for the client to get to the attorney because they just get stuck in the team. And we've tried to avoid that. So we really built out pods in here to kind of attack each client with an opportunity to like really have a one-on-one experience and have that handheld from the start. I mean, look, going through an injury stakes. It is not something anyone wants. And there's a lot of talk of when you hear personal injury at scale and everything, that this is just like a conveyor belt. You throw them on, you go through, and it is what it is. And it's not. I mean, every injury is unique and different, and every case is unique and different. And while you can systematize so much of the process, you still need a unique hand-holding process to reach it. And so I think that makes us boutique in the sense that start to finish, any type of injury case, we will take, you'll get a full team, you'll get an attorney assigned to you, they'll work it all the way up. If it has to go to trial, we are going to work it all the way. We're not a pre-lit firm. We're not a litigation firm. We are an everything firm. We'll take it all the way, start to finish.
That Calendly link is such a great idea because, one of the biggest complaints is communication and giving the client the power to schedule that, assuming they don't abuse it. But to your point, I mean, that was kind of what I was getting at earlier when I was talking about my experience, having a friend represent me, because being a lawyer, being, in this jurisdiction for 30 years, I knew a lot of trial lawyers, but it's different when you have a friend representing you. But I think if you can give people that feel, because of how important it is because of how shitty everything you're going through, having that ability to really connect with who's representing you is really important.
I would agree with that too. And thinking about like maybe where we started as a firm and where we're at now, we've certainly realized, like, so when we started, this is another funny story. I think on our business cards and our email, we had like all of our contact information for the firm, and then we had our cell phones, and that's changed, right? Like, so do I consider us a boutique firm? For sure. But are we going to allow many or all of our clients to have our cell phones? Like, we've made a decision not to do that anymore. After receiving random text messages and phone calls at 1 a.m. on a Thursday night, like, we've decided that's not something that we would want for ourselves or our attorneys. But we do make sure to give all of our clients ample opportunity and ability to contact us. I know when, a client signs on with our firm, obviously an attorney is signed right away. You have a paralegal and a legal assistant, and those three people are in contact with the client within 24 to 48 hours of time that they sign up. So that's like your first point of contact is you've got a team of 3 people. And if you're the client, it's really a team of 4 people because the client's a huge piece of it. And as your case moves along, once it resolves, it actually goes to another department that specializes in finalizing the liens, which is, kind of connecting with you guys, right? Where all of a sudden we're trying to find a way to resolve an ERISA lien, and we have to get that ERISA lien down. And for one reason or another, we can't figure it out. Well, that's when we call synergy, because those are the ones that you guys have, the secret sauce. I don't know what it is. I'm trying to figure it out. But you guys got the secret sauce to help those clients actually get paid what they deserve. And that's sort of our process. So, and I think, when we talk about boutique as well, if for some reason a client needs their case to go to litigation, that goes to a litigation lawyer, and the litigation lawyer and their team handles the litigation case. Some of us handle pre-lit and litigation, but I think, my preference is that litigation lawyers only do litigation work, pre-lit lawyers only do pre-lit work. And of course, the trial lawyers should only do the trial work, because that's how you get the best of the best of the best in each section or department of the case. And it's helpful giving the feedback downstream and upstream as the cases are going on. So that's sort of my take on, what we're trying to create here. I think a lot of that's still in process. We're only 2 years in. But if we did this again in a year or two, you'd probably see hopefully more attorneys, more senior attorneys, more people with trial experience, part of the team, sort of building our core group into the type of attorneys we want them to be.
In doing prep for this episode and kind of given where things are at right now, I came across a podcast episode called Speed Tech, How Kurtz Riley Built an Explosive PI Firm. And when you talk about speed and tech, what does that actually look like in your workflow today? And where are you spending money on technology? And where are you choosing to not spend it and stay away from?
One of the things we utilized extensively, and we still utilize, is our Filevine. I've been pretty loud. Look, I think Filevine is an amazing product. I think it gets better if you know how to edit it and clean it. I think our Filevine is as good of a Filevine as there is out there. And I'll say that loudly. As for Filevine's customer service, don't get me started. But that's a different topic, and they know how I feel about that as well. But that was one of the things that made us quick initially, is like our Filevine stack was really good. And we still to this day will go back and edit Filevine maybe once a month. It used to be every day. We'd go back, hey, this will be better. And Brian and I flying to Cabo on Thursday for 60 plus people. I guarantee there will be an edit made to Filevine from Thursday to Sunday that I personally do, because we see something, we fix it, we go, hey, this just needs to be this, and we do it ourselves. That is a tech approach that an older law firm has never done, won't do. It would never have one of the owners going on the back end and fixing it. But we know, hey, if we do this, our reports will run this way, and we'll be able to generate this dashboard from that. We'll be able to get 1% better by doing this. That was the start. There's this whole AI push right now, obviously. And the in vogue answer is to say like, oh, I just have AI do everything. But I think that the reality is like AI is getting there, and it's more there today than it was there yesterday. And it will be more there tomorrow than it was 2 days ago, but it's still not there. One of the ways we've combated that is while everyone is going heavy AI, we're building it, we're doing it in certain facets. We also rely heavily on Solvo, which is a nearshore hiring company we utilize. And so we have 25 plus paralegals in Colombia, the country, that are fully bilingual. And I will say loudly on stages, like we did our big charity event raiser in February, and I was up there on a mic and I was like, I put my 25 paralegals in Colombia against any of my Arizona paralegals. Like they're amazing. They are so good at what they do. And so they're that good. And I think utilizing nearshore hiring has allowed us to scale. While people are jumping straight to AI, this is kind of that middle of like, AI will get there. I've watched it do some amazing things. We're advisors on Finch, which we think is like a great company, and we've watched Finch grow. I know Viraj has been on the pod, like big fan of Finch. I think Viraj is going to do amazing things, but I think as that goes, Solvo allows us to keep up in a way that we're tech forward, but we're not going to sit here and lie and say, oh yeah, AI writes all our demand letters from scratch. Like, I know some companies say that and they just don't. And so like we have templates that it's a good Filevine template that does demand letter, and then it's good nearshore hiring that cleans it. And that's a speed and a tech push that allows the templates allow the tech to push. But utilizing nearshore is kind of the gap fill.
Yeah, that's such a great blueprint you just gave, because that we actually have a team in Colombia as well, and utilizing the right tech stack overlay with AI and some of these nearshoring type solutions, you build all that together and you could get to a very efficient and profitable operation. Whereas, as you said, just relying on one solution isn't going to get you there these days anyway. And particularly AI is a beautiful thing. It's incredibly helpful. But as you said, it's even, I've got it trained on my writing and I've done a ton of thought leadership writing, but it still can't do what I do. I see that. I see what it puts out there. Just like any of these solutions are not going to be out of the box able to replicate anything that you or I can pull out of our brain today. Maybe another year or two, that'll change. I don't know. But, short term.
Yeah. I think some of the most impressive parts of the AI that I've seen, and there is a lot of very impressive companies, benches out there, of course, that do some cool stuff. And I think utilizing the AI for attorneys is essential because all of this is coming super fast. So it's like you need to get on the train in some facet. I don't think it really matters if you're on the first aboard or the last aboard, but get on the train as soon as you possibly can. Start implementing and using this stuff. Obviously, negotiating with defense attorneys, right? Like finding ways to summarize the records, pointing to the records, showing the records, doing it in a presentable way that can be convincing and persuasive for them to bring it to their insurance adjuster and say, look, the old tricks ain't working, where we're saying, hey, this is, no causation or whatever. Like Brian's showed me 6 different ways in the records where, he's finding objective evidence. Like we're not going to be able to pull this one off. We need to put more value on the case. That's one of the ways that I use AI. We have some AI, like Medcron stuff built into our Filevine. We also use Supio. I've been really impressed with them, and I've gotten a lot of value on using the AI tools to, get the insurance companies and the adjusters or the defense attorneys to, put more money on the table for our clients. So I really like that stuff. And then also, this is one of the things that I have not utilized enough with Finch is, how cool is it to have an AI receptionist, call and open a claim and order the police report, or basically open 2 claims, order the police report and contact the health insurance and contact, 6 different providers all at the same exact time in an instant using a virtual AI assistant where you couldn't, potentially have even one Arizona paralegal make 7 phone calls in one day. They can do it all at the same time within 5 minutes. So that's really cool. And I think that is what I'm super interested in, like seeing develop, because talk about efficiency. That's massive. And like, I really think and truly believe that when someone's hurt in an accident today, and if their case is worth $100,000 because of how bad that accident was today, it's our job as the attorney, if they hire us, to get them that money as quickly as possible. Because as soon as that accident happens, that's when, in my opinion, they deserve that money. So, the insurance company's game is to push that as long as you possibly can. And, why can't we get, if the accident's been going on for 3 months, then why didn't we get our client paid earlier? And that's kind of an aggressive and intense approach, but that's the type of approach that the opposing side needs to feel, because these people are going through significant pain and probably have their life fully turned upside down. And the $100,000 policy limits offer that comes in today is going to be worth a lot more to them than in a year from now, because this is when they really need it. So I think we kind of have that attitude in the firm of let's do everything we can to be as efficient as possible. And if that means using AI or, nearshore hiring or a combination of all of it, whatever it takes, let's do it. And we're really excited to see where AI goes. But we're also I think we're smart enough to realize, two things. Whatever AI product we're analyzing, does it fit within our tech stack? Does it fit within our standard operating procedures, right? If it doesn't fit, either we need to change our standard operating procedures to make it fit, or maybe it's just not the product for us. And then the second thing is the price and the cost, and how is it being billed to the client? There's a lot of great AI tools that are being offered to us personal injury firms, but I don't need a medical records review on a case that's worth 25 grand that they're going to pay me 25 grand on, so like I shouldn't have to be billed for that particular case. I kind of like the a la carte model a little bit more, where when I need something, like when I need a medical records review, I want to be able to click a button and I can go get that done, versus being billed for every single case we sign up every single month and not using it on, 90% of the cases.
You made a really great point, and I think it's worth repeating, which is, anything that a law firm does that is repetitive, administrative in nature, that could be done by technology that would be faster, that reduces time on desk. That's an area to me that, is where law firms should be looking at deploying any type of technology that can free up staff time to move cases more rapidly through the firm. We just brought a solution to market that does the identification and verification of liens through a combination of AI and a human in the loop, because, law firms spend all this time and money with their staff performing that function that can actually delay disbursement if it's not kept up with and done timely. Why not let technology do those sorts of things? And there's a myriad of other things, right? Things that you guys have explored, Supio with all their solutions, and, things that are being built into the case management software systems, which are all very positive things that ultimately I think are going to help you guys deliver that result even more quickly for people that, like you said, really need that money now, not, a year and a half from now. I'm curious with you guys being co-founders, that kind of a structure, two people can break a lot of business relationships and law firms. I'm curious, how did you guys go about dividing up the responsibility between the two of you? And are there any decisions you guys initially made together that you've now said, hey, you make that decision, I'll make this decision?
I think we've gone through like 100 different iterations of that, honestly. Here's the thing is, like, when we started a law firm, a lot of people were like, oh, two of you? Good luck. Or that's not going to work. Or, yeah, my partner never worked. Like, I've heard all that, but their partner wasn't Brian Riley. Like, I don't know what to tell you. I'm sorry it didn't work for everyone else. It works really well for us. Brian and I are just like, we were friends going into the firm, and we've just become like brothers doing it together. I don't know. It works really well. At times, like, are we both like, well, I disagree or whatever? Yeah, but like we know that we're both trying to get the best for the firm. And so we're always dedicated to like, how do we get there? I just think that like, I think it's something about like good luck, but like, I just know that like we always say, hey, shit could go so bad. And if everything goes bad, where do we go back to? Back to us fighting our way out of a corner. Like that's where we're meant to be. And so we just kind of have a way of like, I'm protective of Brian, Brian's protective of me. And I see stuff coming at Brian and I'm like, hey, we need to do this to protect you. He does the same for me. And we just constantly kind of figure out where the pressure points are and the other one fills the void. And I don't know, it's never really been like we've broken and been like, you do lit, I do pre-lit or whatever inverse. And we've done a bunch of different iterations and it always comes back to us both just doing it together. And there's certain things that like, we just know kind of who to take what, but we just fill the gaps.
I'd say it's pretty natural. Like we get copied on a lot of emails for business decisions and things like that. And depending on the subject matter, we kind of will defer a little bit to each other. And if it's not, getting decided, we'll figure it out together. But like, Austin's got an incredible marketing brain. And, the best thing that Austin can do is keep that thing kind of going. When he gets a little bit too sucked into having too many cases and too many things on his mind, like that's really not a great thing for the firm, because he needs to be able to obviously kick ass on his caseload, which are, to be honest, are higher value cases, and also have that creative going in the background at all times too. That's super crucial for the firm. And then for me, like I've got a pretty large capacity when it comes to work, and maybe kind of can be the bad guy in the office occasionally when it comes to having to make tough decisions, but I just kind of own that role. And I think, the other thing that's really important to me in Austin is we're very competitive with each other and also the entire office. I come from a football and a sports background. So being on a football team, that doesn't mean that you play every single play and you play every single down and you're not, starting on offense and defense and special teams. Like you have a role within the team. And, when I was the starting tight end for most of my career, there was always a second string tight end. And the second string tight end, when he was on the field with me, those were his responsibility in that play was just as important as my responsibility in that play. Because even if one of us screwed up, that's going to screw up the play in the backfield, most likely. So I think we kind of take that same approach where, there's no real like first string or second string. It's just a matter of all being in this together, all trying to find a resolution for a client that makes sense. And, every single day, just fighting through it and, not being afraid to ask questions and make decisions and work together.
Yeah. If you're going to make a partnership work, that's the way, it's got to work. I'm curious, is there one piece of conventional wisdom about running a PI firm that you guys have actively rejected at KRLG, and what convinced you it was wrong?
I got a crazy take on that. So the question was, is there one piece of conventional wisdom that you've been, given before you started KRLG that you've, decided is probably not correct? So this is kind of an interesting one that I realized a while ago, and I kind of knew it for our firm, but I didn't have the data to really support it. And I think part of the reason, I'm going to get to what it is in a second, but I think part of the reason why we're at where we're at right now is because our firm's kind of still in the baby toddler stages. We're only, just over 2 years old. But a lot of personal injury firms and lawyers will tell you that the firm makes 80% of their money on 20% of the cases. I think that's called called the Pareto principle. Yeah, the principle. So the firm makes 80% of their money on 20% of their cases. And I think that will become true for us at some point in the future. I think, as our larger cases continue to mature and they get further into litigation, maybe that becomes true. But for all the results that our firm has had in the last 2 years, I'm not going to tell the exact number, but it's been a lot. I mean, the largest cases and the largest fees is probably less, if you combined all of them, would probably be less than 3% of the firm's total revenue. And that's just because I think our systems, especially on the smaller to mid-sized cases, are so refined and so tight that every single day when we check the mail, it's a lot of policy limit settlements coming in every single day. And that's really what keeps the firm alive, but also allows us to be profitable. So I'm very excited for the Pareto. It's called the Pareto curve. Is that what it's called?
Principle, I believe.
Principle. I'm really excited for the
Something
day
like
to come where, 80% of the revenue is built on 20% of the cases, because that means that we're doing really great all the way around. But I just think that we're still kind of coming around that corner. And I think the point that I'm trying to say is, if you are looking to start your own firm, it's not necessary for you to have a lot of cases or only have a few big cases. You can do it in different ways and you can be successful in different ways. It's about kind of figuring out how to manage your operation in a way that allows you to, do well for yourself and for your firm.
I'm curious, what is the next thing that you guys feel like you have to get right at KRLG for the firm to keep growing without breaking the model that has worked thus far?
I think you've got to scale Brian and I. We're doing it, but it's really hard to do. I think that we have started the process by bringing in talented senior lawyers to start scaling us, helping mentor our younger lawyers. That's one part of it. We started to spend differently in marketing to start scaling a little bit of that. We've tried to build out operationally managers in different sections to start scaling a bit of that. I think that's the biggest hurdle any law firm goes from. But I mean, for us right now, we are at a point that what we're doing is working really well, and the firm is being very successful. But if we want to reach levels above this, it's continuing to scale. And I know that's such a simple answer. Hey, how do you get bigger? Oh, scale. But that really is, in its simplest terms, scaling us is the most successful.
Yeah. And I think also for Austin and I, and this is going to be probably the hardest thing for us to do, make a decision on, is like I was saying earlier, the pre-lit lawyers get really badass at pre-lit. The litigators get really good at litigation. The trial lawyers get really good at trial. And right now, Austin and I are, in my opinion, and the data will, support it, but we are definitely really good at working cases and, being in rainmakers. But in between that, we're also trying to be marketers, and we're trying to be business people, and we're trying to become better trial lawyers. And I think at some point in the future, basically letting the reins go on one of those areas is going to be helpful for us to continue to grow the firm too. So for instance, if it's me, basically if it's Austin doing fully marketing and me doing fully networking and business development, do I think that is ever going to happen? Probably not, to be honest. I just think we're too in tune with the cases and all that kind of stuff going on. But being able to maybe scale out of some of the cases and give a little bit more trust to our team to handle some of the cases and situations would be helpful for the firm to have two people at the top that are, actually trying to push the business in a, hey, let's get more cases type way versus let's just keep our results going up, which isn't a bad thing. I mean, I love getting big results. It's a different way of scaling.
Well, scaling any business is a challenge. Having, started Synergy a long time ago, 2008, with 5 people and now over 100 people. I mean, the changes and iterations over time are just, massive. And you realize at some point it outgrows you as someone who started it, served as, CEO. And, so, I mean, there's seasons, but the challenge always is getting that scaling right and being a good steward of the direction of the company for all the people that are depending on you to lead it in the right direction, right? Because, it's not just you guys anymore. Now you've got a whole bunch of people that are depending on you for their livelihoods as well. So it becomes very important how you make those decisions and ultimately then deliver your services.
Yep.
Important stuff. But you guys have been really generous with your time. Don't want to take up really much more. But I want to ask you both a question that I always ask to end the podcast. It's very open-ended, so you can answer it however you guys want to. Austin, I'll ask you first. I know that you, from doing some research, your dad, I believe, was a lawyer, and so you come from that background. You've got this interest in tech, and I'm just curious, what is your view at where you sit today as a trial lawyer?
So I think that like one of the topics that is so hot right now is that like the common law firm is ending. I think that that's like this point that everyone's making is like it's just going to go away. And I just disagree vehemently. I think that tech is making lawyers better. And I think it's allowing greater access to justice. And I don't think it's the beginning of the end. I think it's a new opportunity for this to get even better. And one of the things we've seen in our business over the last several years is big ships take a long time to turn, right? We always say that like we're not a mega yacht. It doesn't take us a lifetime to turn the boat around. We're a speedboat. We just, hey, we don't want to do that. We rip it the other way and go. And I think you're going to have a lot more speedboats out there. And this access to justice is going to increase. And, I don't think it's the beginning of the end. So the end is not near, and everyone who wants to keep saying it needs to chill out.
Brian, same question. I'm curious because you're very different background, but you guys have built this firm together, and I'm curious, about your view as where you sit today.
I mean, kind of going back to what Austin said earlier, right? Like, I think we're both men of simple needs and means, and we have a passion for helping injured people and helping out on the cases. And if for some reason there was a great consolidation and all of a sudden there's only 4 law firms in the United States, do I see myself and Austin actually working for those law firms? Probably not, to be honest. Like, I think we'll probably spill off and do our own thing and, try to get in the courtroom and, make some noise that way. And probably pull away from, the traditional norms of just kind of falling in line with everybody else. And that's what I think, honestly, if that ends up happening, then I'm excited for it, because I think we will find a way to market ourselves differently, and we'll continue to grow our skill set in a way where it'll be undeniable how much, people in other firms will need us to represent them in cases. Thankfully for myself and Austin, time's on our side. We're in our mid-30s, and there's a lot of big law firm owners out there that don't necessarily have time on their side as much as we do. And maybe they're the ones who are speaking loudly about the great consolidation and, everything kind of imploding and changing. And I just don't really see it that way, because for me, it's all about being flexible and, realizing that if, let's say, there is no more car accidents in 5 years or 10 years because there's automated vehicles, well, great. I'm the next products liability attorney, best products liability attorney in Arizona, next to Austin, number 2. But like, that's not happening right now. So until that happens, I don't have to be flexible for it. I can just continue to increase my skill set, learn, work with Austin, become a better attorney, and hopefully just help a ton of people in the process.
Well, thanks to both of you for your time. Can you guys briefly just give an overview of the firm, where you have your practice areas, and if somebody's got a case they want to refer to you guys in your jurisdiction, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Yeah, we are as simple as it goes, KRLG.com. You can find us. We'll do any sort of injury case in Arizona. We love referral work. We're passionate about it. You can find us on Instagram at KRLG as well.
Well, thanks again, Austin and Brian, for joining me today on Trial Lawyer Review, and we'll see everybody on the next episode.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If today's episode gave you a new perspective on how your firm operates or sparked a useful idea, consider sharing it with a colleague, and be sure to follow the show so you don't miss future conversations with leaders across the personal injury space. Trial Law Review is brought to you by Synergy, a strategic operations partner helping personal injury law firms resolve healthcare liens more efficiently. If you're looking to accelerate case flow and allow your team to focus on high-level legal work that moves cases faster, consider partnering with Synergy. I'm Jason Lazarus, and I'll see you in the next episode.